Welcome back to Expert Voices with Jeff Evans. Today I'm with Sandy Petty. How we doing, Sandy?
I'm doing well, thank you, Jeff, and thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Now, Sandy, you're with Executive Financial Partners, and we are here in your offices off of Howell Mill Road in downtown Atlanta. Absolutely beautiful place, great views. We almost did this outside, but the construction was just a little too loud for my liking, and I'd probably be sweating more than I'm sweating currently, so that's a good thing.
Understood.
So take me way back, because you are not from the continental United States, are you?
I am not.
So take me, where are you actually born and raised?
That's fine. Perfect. So I'm originally from the beautiful island of Aruba.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Dutch island, and it's a very unique island in that when people think of the Caribbean and they think island, yes, they think beaches, and beaches shore is number one that exemplifies Aruba. However, it's somewhat of a desert. So it's not lush and green like some of the other West Indian islands. We are close to the equator, and Aruba gets less than 2% rain. It's a small Dutch island, 19 by 6, less than 2% rain a year. So it's a desert. Lots of sand, cactus, aloe, but beautiful, beautiful beaches, some of the best in the world.
Sure. I haven't had the pleasure of going there yet. But what was it like, growing up there? Like, I mean, I can only imagine growing up in a desert. So were you used to the heat? Did you appreciate it? How did you work this?
Sure, absolutely. So growing up on the island, it's always hot, yes, but there's also nice trade wind breezes. So it's very windy.
Okay.
So the humidity is not like Hotlanta, for example, where we are right now. It's always very windy, very breezy. So it was nice really growing up there. Like I said, it's a Dutch island. So everyone on the island, our original language, our language of origin is Dutch. That's what we grew up going to school in. But everyone on the island speaks about 4 languages.
Wow. Okay.
So you start learning English from 6th grade. It's mandatory. From the 6th grade, you start learning English in school. And then 7th grade, Spanish is added. So everyone on the island speaks Dutch, English, and Spanish. And then we speak a mixture, a dialect on the island called Papiamento. And Papiamento has origins in Afrikaans, a lot of Portuguese, Spanish, English. It's a hodgepodge.
Wow.
So when you speak to people in Aruba, or when we're speaking amongst ourselves, one sentence can have several languages in one sentence.
What?
Yes. And so we start off in whatever language, and then next thing you know, we're putting in an English word or a Dutch word or something like that. So it's very interesting. But that's how I grew up. Now, I had the privilege of my dad was from one of the British islands, so we got to speak English at home. And on certain parts of the island where there was more of that influx of men coming from the upper West Indian islands to work in the oil refinery back in the day, those homes ended up most people spoke English there. So like I said, I had the benefit and the privilege of speaking English at home because of my dad. He was from St. Vincent.
Okay.
And like I said, most of those folks came to the island to work in the oil refinery. The island had a huge oil refinery called from Exxon.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I have never heard of a language where you were actually speaking multiple languages in one sentence. It's fascinating.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that anywhere else? Is that done? No, that's a movie thing.
Yeah, I have not heard that.
Yeah.
And so the Dutch Caribbean consists of 6 islands: Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, St. Martin, Saba, and Statia. St. Martin, Saba, and Statia has more of the English influence, even though they were Dutch islands. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, there's more of where the Papiamento language is spoken. Obviously, over the years, folks have migrated to all the other islands. So
yeah.
on all of them, you'll find people who do speak Papiamento there as well.
Okay, fascinating. So, all right. So we're from Aruba. We speak 10,000 languages. Made up languages, well, multiple languages all in one sentence, which is absolutely fascinating. And I need to learn more about that now because that's just crazy. How did you get to the United States? Where did you go? Is this for college or how did you get here?
Sure. So I came to the United States at the age of 16 to start college.
Wow, 16.
16. Yes.
Okay.
And I wanted to come to the United States. Most of the folks in Aruba, when we finished high school, they go to Holland, right, for university and for continuing education, primarily because it's paid for, right? You stick within the Dutch system of schooling. So it's simpler, it's easier, right? I wanted to come to America because, so my dad and my mom divorced, and my dad lived in the United States. But also, I had a friend who was in New York, and so you see and hear a lot about New York, and I was like, okay, I want to go to New York.
Right.
So I left. I finished school, and I wanted to study accounting, and I decided on Hofstra University, which is located in Hempstead, Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And why Hofstra? Number one, in my mind, I thought, well, it's on Long Island. I'm from an island, right? So I'm taking you back into the mind of a 16-year-old.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I thought, it's going to be a little bit like Aruba. So I'm not going to be going to a big, big country, but yet I still get to have the benefit of being in New York. And then one of the other interesting things that I learned about Hofstra, the crest on Hofstra, Je m'entendrai, which is a Dutch crest, and Hofstra had some connection to the Dutch. So that was my little rationalization of choosing Hofstra University in Hempstead, Long Island. Again, I'm taking you back into the mind of a 16-year-old.
That's fine, because you don't want to know what was in my mind as a 16-year-old. So that's amazing.
Right?
Absolutely amazing. So did you graduate in 3 years, 4 years? I mean, were you the next Doogie Howser?
No. So I did graduate, and I did a full 4 years.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to study accounting. I knew I wanted to be an accountant since 9th grade.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
In high school, like I said, the high school that I went to in Aruba, everyone, you had these 4 languages that you have to take, you have to learn. You must graduate with at least 2 languages. I was very, very good at math. But when I got into 9th grade, and you had to, choose sort of kind of a direction where you wanted to go, I chose economics and bookkeeping, accounting kind of thing. And as soon as I got into that, I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. So I went to Hofstra and was an accounting major, graduated in 4 years. I do have a creative side of me, so my minor was in dance. I minored in dance.
Oh, great.
And after graduation, I actually went to Holland to work for Touche Ross at the time, which is one of the big 8 accounting firms. And the reason I did that was like I mentioned, a lot of my friends, they went to school and furthered their education in Holland. And I was kind of like an anomaly coming to America. So I kind of wanted that reunion back. And I went to Holland and worked for Touche Ross. And while I was there, the accountants all encouraged me to get my CPA in the United States, since I had already done 4 years worth of college, because if I had tried going the chartered accountant route, I pretty much had to start over. So then I came back to the United States. I got my MBA in finance, and then took the CPA exam, and then I got recruited right out of MBA school to work for Coopers & Lybrand at the time. They were one of the big 8 accounting firms as well. And that's how I kind of started my career.
Okay. All right. So Aruba, New York, Holland.
Yep.
And then when you came back, where were you? Were you back in New York?
Yes, I was back in New York.
Okay.
I went to St. John's University, which was in Queens.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I lived in Queens, went to school in Queens, and then started working from there. Got recruited right out of MBA school.
Okay. So take me from the path, the road, from where you were with one of those big eights to creating your firm now. How long of a road was that? How bumpy of a road was that?
Wow. What a winding road it was,
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah.
So we'll share a little bit about that journey. Right out of MBA school, as I mentioned, I started with Cooper's, and I started in audit. I got into financial services by chance, right? When you start, they just start you anywhere, and then you just kind of figure out if that's the route you want to go or you want to stay in it. Well, interestingly enough, my very first client was Drexel Burnham. And Drexel Burnham, that connection was Mike Milken and the Junk Bonds, if you ever knew of him. So they were my first client.
Oh, wow.
So that started me on the route of financial services and Wall Street clients that I had. So I spent a lot of time auditing firms down there, a lot of international banks, a lot of investment banks, highly regulated companies. From there, because of my languages and because I was in financial services, typically the audits would end in the spring. So you had a gap from spring to fall where there are no financial services audits. So I had to find other clients, other industries to fill that gap. Now, I speak all these languages, and I'm from the Caribbean. So what I was fortunate of being able to get on audits that were back in the Caribbean, right? With, again, it's an international firm, so you could go anywhere. And so I started auditing firms and companies on the island of St. Martin, which is another Dutch island, right? Part of my heritage. And so I spent the summers there auditing hotels, construction companies, the airport, various different industries, which obviously opened and expanded my mind to that. In that process, I decided, I wanted to spend some time in the Caribbean for personal reasons the following year, and Cooper's didn't have a spot for me. So, but again, it's the Caribbean, so the partners all know one another. So the partners at Cooper's shared with the partners at Deloitte, hey, we have this young lady who is very heavy with international and financial services companies. So I ended up in the Bahamas.
Okay.
And working for Deloitte, and again, doing a lot of investment companies, international companies, that type of thing. From there, I spent some time back home in Aruba once my mom was ill. Obviously, family is very important, families first. So once my mom got ill, I returned back to Aruba for a few years. And I worked for a bank there as the chief accounting officer. I was part of implementing the whole know your customer and money laundering type of regulatory strategies and processes for the bank on the island. And I was there for a few years before I returned back to the United States. So I've had a little bit of back and forth, as one can imagine. And wow, I think I went back to, I went back to the Northeast. And after my mom passed away, I went back to the Northeast. And that's a long question, right? It's a long gap from how do you end up from there to start your own company? But I'll share. I'm just going to walk you through.
It sounds like you lived multiple lives in between.
I lived multiple lives. I lived in multiple countries. I had a lot of different interests. However, the one core was that I was an accountant at heart, an auditor, and therefore I was able to, always land jobs, land positions that were comparable within my field wherever I went. Right, one of the benefits of being in that industry. So fast forward to even how I got to Atlanta. I mean, so I'm back in the Northeast. 9/11 happened in the Northeast. And at the same time, my father got ill. So I wanted to do the same thing that I did for my dad, which is to go be with him, take care of them, live and support them through the end of their lives. I did the same for my dad. I moved to South Florida. I got back into audit, and I was an audit manager again, auditing all financial services companies in South Florida, Southeast Florida, some Southwest Florida.
Okay.
Supporting my dad. That's where I met my husband during that time, and we got married. But then after 2008, I have a very, very unique piece that I have to share.
Yeah.
So when I came to America at 16, I was a single mom. My mom and dad had divorced. My mom got a loan from these companies called Island Finance to buy my suitcase.
Wow.
So that I could go to college.
Yeah.
Right? So park that. During this time period when I moved to South Florida to support my dad, met my husband during that time, I had the distinct, I am humbly saying, I got the distinct opportunity to work for one of Bear Stearns' portfolio companies as the chief accounting officer. I was responsible for all of financial accounting, regulatory reporting, and all of the external audits of these companies. Well, that portfolio included Island Finance of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And so how special it was to now be the chief accounting officer for the company that financed my suitcase to go to college.
Did you get emotional when you saw that?
Oh my gosh. I did, because when I interviewed initially, I didn't realize that company owned the portfolios of those, right? It was a Bear Stearns portfolio company. So I didn't realize the connection until I was given the responsibility for all of the regulatory reporting. And then I had to go and meet with the central banks and go to all of these island finances. Imagine going back to Aruba to island finance, right?
Wow.
How incredible was that?
That's amazing.
My mom wasn't alive to know that, but I've believed that she knew.
Of course.
And was also proud. But it was so humbling as well.
I'm sure it was.
To work there. So I worked there for about almost 2-3 years before 9/11 happened. And then, not 9/11, but the crash in 2008. When Bear Stearns closed their doors. And that was the transition to coming to Atlanta. Came to Atlanta. I got a position with a wealth management firm that was a startup firm, and was with that firm as their controller and the top accounting person for that firm until they grew from 0 to $1 billion in assets under management. I was responsible for all of accounting and HR and finance. And then I moved to another wealth management firm to do the same thing, to build the financial infrastructure. And that company grew from 6 to 10 billion in assets under management. And then a large Midwestern bank recruited me to come and build out their technical accounting team. And again, so you see the over those years, I started realizing that, one, I had a passion for and I had a knack for building financial infrastructures from nothing and growing it. So I got a promotion and a job change from this Midwestern bank, but it meant that I would be spending a lot more time in the Midwest. And this island girl really wasn't at that time up for a move to the Midwest, which caused me to then say, well, let me resign and take a step back, reevaluate. Where do I want to go to next? What do I want to do next? And I started consulting because at that time, revenue recognition was coming into play with a lot of the large publicly traded companies. Started consulting with them. And as that time went on, we got to a place, both my husband and I happened to be in transition around the same time. But I was still consulting and doing some projects. And he was like, well, we need some recurring revenue, some stability here. You're an accountant. Why not start an accounting firm? I really didn't have a desire to be an entrepreneur, really. But it resulted out of a need. It was the need of the hour, right? I was getting projects through recruiting firms, but that's up and down. And so I felt like, okay, let's embark. So we looked for a name of what would describe who I am and what I am to these companies. I'm I'm executive. I'm providing financial support, and I really want to partner with these small businesses. So we felt like that's how that name came about, Executive Financial Partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, well, what's going to really set you apart? Well, what are you good at, right? Building financial infrastructures. Well, that's what I had done in the last, I would say, before I started the company, in the last 8 years. That's what I had been doing, right? The first wealth management firm was a startup. I literally had gotten one of those yellow legal pads with here are the 5 checks we've written as we've started.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go and, build a financial infrastructure from the technology to the process, the procedures, all of that. Then I went and did the same thing at a bigger company, starting with a clean canvas. They had a parent company that owned them at the time where everything was outsourced to them. Well, we want to bring that in-house. What do we need? A new financial system. We need processes. We need procedures, all of that. I had just done that. And then same with the technical accounting department at this large Midwestern firm. It was a new thing at the time in the industry. A lot of companies were, having to implement technical accounting strategies. So that's one of the things that I feel like that sets us apart from your other accounting firms, that we really spend the time understanding the business and building their financial infrastructures for them. So I know that's a long way, and I'm sure I missed out some pieces in there. But
well, you can't remember all of it all at the same time in one show. But we could have another follow-up show when you remember the rest. I'm just kidding. But well, we certainly can. So all right. So now we're officially here. We're modern day.
yes.
Okay. So take me into what is an ideal client for you. What do they look like, smell like, talk like? What are their problems, and what are the solutions that you provide that really help them to be able to really build and scale their businesses?
Okay. So my ideal client, I would say, or customer would be one that's truly looking to ensure that their financial foundation is solid and they're really trying to get to the next place. They're coachable. Most of them have had an accountant before, a bookkeeper before, or something like that. And I like to tell people that when you come to us, it will be your last stop. One, because we do take the time up front to really understand your business, understand your need, and advise you accordingly. Our process in bringing on new customers, we always have an initial discovery where we ask, we try to get some vital signs. We get a questionnaire from them. Mm-hmm. And then we spend time performing a diagnostic on them so that, again, when we finish with you and we decide, we have a meeting point, I will tell you what I did, why I did it, what I found, and what I would recommend for you. Sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it's not a good fit because of what they're looking for or what their need is or what their budget is. But one thing that we can be sure of, one thing you can be assured of, we communicate, we're transparent, and we have integrity. Those are our three core values. So our ideal client is someone who's coachable and ready for that next step. They truly want to make sure that, you know what, I have a good, solid foundation that will set the stage for either growth or scaling.
Okay. So can you give me an example in a more specific manner of what that next step for a business would look like that would be a perfect fit for you?
Okay. So the best way for me to describe that is just to give you a real life example.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a client that was recommended to us. They were with another accounting firm, and actually the accounting firm was seeking a home for them because they felt like they really couldn't meet the need that they were seeking. Bookkeeping was a little all over the place for them, and they were a tax client for this CPA firm, right? So the CPA was preparing the tax returns, and they had prepared returns for the past 5 years for this client. So it's long. The client had longevity with them, but they really felt like this client was growing in revenues, growing in bringing on. It was in the healthcare and physician. So they were bringing on more healthcare professionals. So they were growing from that standpoint as well as seeing more patients. So they came to us. We performed the diagnostic, and the first thing we found was their accounting, the infrastructure was not in place. So therefore, the tax returns that were being prepared were not being prepared with accurate information. And again, we're not going to get into the distinguishing between a tax accountant versus a financial accountant right now on this show.
Right.
But obviously, the tax accountant could only prepare the returns based on what was provided from a financial standpoint.
Of course.
And that's where the breakdown was happening. And that's where we came in. So we came in and we cleaned up the books. We found two things. One, the software wasn't being utilized to its fullest potential accurately, which creates inaccuracies and mistakes and errors in the financials. If you're not utilizing the software correctly, you might be trying to record something that then is resulting in an error or a mistake inadvertently, maybe not necessarily, intentional. So we ended up cleaning up a couple of years for the books, and now we had accurate and solid books and records. When we finished doing that, we realized, you know what? And this happens more often than not. I like to tell my clients that if your tax return is being prepared and you don't have a good financial infrastructure and a good set of books, it's 90+% of the time those tax returns are incorrect and you're giving away money. So that was the case. And, when we did our analysis, book to tax, we were able to show this client that we could get her $30,000 back into her bank account.
Wow.
That she had overpaid on tax returns.
Wow.
Because she didn't have good books and records.
Yeah.
And again, for a small business, if you're under $1 million, $30,000 is a lot. If you're over $1 million, $30,000 is a lot. Doesn't matter, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, so we amended the returns for a couple of years and was able to get her that cash back. Now, we didn't go all the way back to the 5 years that she had been with that accounting firm because sometimes that can raise some red flags.
And get you audited, right?
And get you audited, which is, again, that risk that you don't want to take, right? So when we did the risk assessment, we said, let's just do a couple years and call it that and let's just move forward. This client at the time also was having some sleepless nights. She did not have good peace of mind. And she was considering selling her business when she came to us. That's how frustrated she was with that area of her business, with the finances and the financials. It was causing her a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights. But we were able to give her that peace of mind. And the result of it is she never sold her business. Now she's thriving. and working in the business and very happy. And she has that peace of mind that that area of her business is well being taken care of.
Speak to that, because that's the human and emotional side of business, and in accounting, a lot of it's notoriously robotic, if you will, at least from an outsider's perspective. But that's not you at all. I don't think you have a robotic bone in your body.
Thank you.
So it's apparent that you really do care for your clients. Speak to that.
Yes, sure. Probably care a little bit too much, almost, caring more than they do. But I really do want to see my clients succeed. We build a relationship. The business that we're in is relational. It's still all about people at the end of the day. And I'm also a small business owner, trying to grow, trying to strive, trying to provide for my family. And I believe that that's the same for every entrepreneur, for every business owner, just trying to provide for their family. And so I think that when a business owner feels and see that we care and we partner with them, right? Again, back to our name, executive, finance, we are part of your team. We are part of your executive team. We really want to partner with you. And they see that we care, that it's the foundation for a very long relationship.
And the partners, it's also called being a fractional CFO, correct?
Yes. So we provide fractional account. We are a client accounting services firm. And what that means is we provide the accounting, but we also provide fractional controllership services and fractional CFO services. So a lot of small businesses can't really afford a six-figure controller, right? They can't afford a full-time six-figure CFO, but at a fraction of the cost, if we can show you that at a fraction of the cost of a staff accountant or the cost of a full charge bookkeeper, that you can be able to still receive these services on a fractional basis, how beneficial would it be for your business? So your business will be on a good foundation. Your business can tell the stories through its numbers, which is really what it's there for, what the numbers are there for, to help you make decisions, help you make business decisions. But you don't have to come up with those numbers, that we will help you with that.
So one of the things I see a lot of, especially in my business and in others as well, is that they really want to use your services, but they're just not there yet. They're not financially there yet. So can you give some advice to small business owners that they're hearing you, they're seeing you, they're listening to you, they're like, man, I want to work with Sandy, and believe me, you want to work with Sandy. What are some of the basics, the 101s that they can be taking care of now to kind of help prepare themselves for coming on board with you at some point in time?
Yeah. So some of the basics I would say is, one, track. And it doesn't matter what software you use to track. If you're even tracking on a spreadsheet, and I know some of my other firm owners might be saying, I can't believe she said that. But the truth is, if you're tracking accurately, that's one step. Another very important step that small businesses miss on is commingling. You do not want to commingle your funds. You really want to make sure that you have a separate account for your business and a separate account for your personal. Do not commingle. And why that is, one is, if you have an LLC and you commingle, you will be piercing the corporate veil. That if you ever got into an audit, there's nothing that shows that it really was a business because you've commingled with your personal. And so that's very, very big. And you'd want to keep the two separate. I would say those are just two real basics.
Okay. That's great advice. Mm-hmm. Something I need to look at for myself as well. So let's look at the future. Where do you see financial services within the next decade? I mean, with with Bitcoin and everything else that's going on, with the blockchain and everything else, where do you see, your world moving towards?
Yeah. So I think that for what we do, there will always, no matter AI, all of that, there will always be a place for us. One is you can never take the human touch out of the process. Someone has to tell the stories. Yes, AI, yes, all of those things can produce maybe the books and records and the financials, but someone has to tell the story.
Right.
Someone has to be there to explain, give some explanations, and or give advice. So the advisory part of things will always be there.
Okay, great. All right, so we're about up. So I want to do some rapid questions with you real quick
Sure.
before we end the episode. So I need to get my trusty list here. Okay, what's your favorite movie of all time?
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman. Okay, beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Beach vacation for sure.
Even though you're from there. All right, love it. What's your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Watching a good sports show or watching a nice movie, glass of wine.
Okay, great. Red or white?
Ooh, I love red.
Yeah, me too. What's the best concert you've ever attended?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one like right off the top of my mind right now.
Okay. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, I like a good vanilla.
Okay.
Good French vanilla.
All right.
Yeah,
Spoken
good
like a
vanilla
true
ice
accountant.
cream.
All right.
Yes.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Michelle Obama.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Well, that'll end the show for today. Please tell people how they can find you when they're ready to work with you.
Sure. Our website is executivefinancialpartners.com. You can email me, Sandy, at executivefinancialpartners.com. We'll always be there.
Awesome. And come see her at Provisors, where we're always out networking and having a great time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Sandy. I appreciate it.